I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Time to talk just a little bit about what's going on in the marijuana movement. You may have noted some stories out there on the net with regards to Moms for Marijuana and a breakup there and people forming other organizations. And that's all fine. I've counseled, when I was with Normal, I counseled multiple different groups. And I found if they don't get along, the people within a group don't get along, sometimes forming another group is a beneficial thing. It's worked out well in a couple of states where I've seen it happen, but I've also seen it have a tendency to be divisive in other states. So just naturally just questioning what's going on here and to see, how everybody can work these things out for the betterment of our shared common goal, ending adult marijuana prohibition. The one thing I have said in print and I think on a previous show that is as far as I want to wade into any controversies is if you have provable allegations of criminal misconduct, that should be taken to a court of law, not the court of public opinion. And that's it. That's all I want to say there. If you got a court case, take it to court. Don't try people in the court of public opinion. But I do want to get to what's going on now. So we've got all these different groups now. We've got Moms for Marijuana, and now we've got two groups that have seemingly split off of this, Parents for Pot and Parents for Responsible Cannabis Use. We had Betty Retro on from Parents for Responsible Cannabis Use on Wednesday. Parents for Pot, I just read a Huffington Post piece on it, is being formed by Mickey Martin, who writes the Cannabis Warrior blog, I think it was, and so forth. And then we've also got other groups out there, Normal Women's Alliance, Moms United, the Women's Marijuana Movement, and so forth, that are kind of partially a parents' movement toward supporting pot and all of that. So how many of these are there going to be, and where might their philosophies differ? And if their philosophies don't differ, why have so many of them? Just curious about this. I'm not saying there's any right or wrong involved here. But in doing some of the research on this and trying to find out what's going on, full disclosure, I know the founder of Moms for Marijuana, Sarah Frank. She lived at my home for 3 or 4 months, so I know her pretty well. I know Betty Retro, who's now part of the Parents for Responsible Cannabis Use. Not well, but I've met her a couple times and interacted with her online. And Mickey Martin, I only know tangentially. We were both at the Boston Freedom Rally. I think we may have exchanged howdy highs, but that's about it. I've read some of his work on the net, but don't really know the guy. So I figured I'd do some research. And what I found is that Mickey Martin was part of, about a decade ago, a company called Tainted Ink. And Tainted Ink, like incorporated, not like, ink in a pen. Tainted Ink was a company that manufactured edibles. And among them, when the DEA busted Tainted Ink, among the edibles that they recovered were candy bars, infused candy, that were packaged and logoed to look like real candy bars. But instead of a Butterfinger, it was a Butterfinger. Instead of a Nutrageous, it was a Nugrageous, right? But it was the same coloring, the same logos, the kind of thing where a kid might mistake that, for a regular old candy bar. Now, I don't care too much about how candy, infused candy is labeled, because I figure if you're a bad enough parent and you're leaving your medibles around where the kids can get at them, it's not going to matter whether it's packaged like a Butterfinger or it's a brownie or what, right? Keep it out of the way, out of the kids' hands. But I can understand the argument for, hey, maybe we ought not to market these things, to look like candy bars, especially if we're saying this is medical marijuana. That's not as much of an issue now that we got legalization happening. But, back when this happened in the early 2000s, we were trying really hard to say, no, it's all medical. And then that forced us to have to, talk to the public and say, well, gosh, adults like candy bars too. And they're just fun, harmless parodies, right? So I put the question out there on my Facebook today, and it took me a second to get back here because I got replies, and I want to thank everyone who's replied to this. But it was about how, where do these groups, Parents for Responsible Cannabis Use, Parents for Pot, and Moms for Marijuana, where do they stand on the issue of the labeling and packaging of medicated edibles? And Mickey Martin, to his credit, gave a nice long response here, explaining how this was a long, when he first started, he was young and brash and apologized for making the mistake and so forth. And then went forward in the later 2000s with another company that was very strong into forming these standards for having, let's have labeling. Let's not have it look like candy bars. Let's have prominent warnings that say it's medical. So kudos, man. That's awesome. That's exactly what we need. Now, it's the kind of response that I'm really happy to start getting now, is to have people, having open discussions and questioning exactly how we're going to proceed forward. I'm going to presume that the other two groups feel the same way, but I'll keep my eye on Facebook and I'll reach out to them personally to see what their stand is on this. Because again, I don't have kids. I'm not a parent. And I really don't care. Actually, to tell you the truth, I think the Butterfingers and the Keef Cats and all that are kind of cute. You remember those old wacky packages you used to get as a kid when it was Captain Crud or it was Dare Eat Those, I kind of like them on that rebellious kind of thing. That for me, I'm fine with it, but I don't have kids. And one thing I do know is that parents out there who aren't necessarily on our side, maybe they're on the fence, they're not sure. I think that's an issue that means a lot to them. I'm assuming maybe there's parents out there in the audience who can call in an hour or two and, fill me in on this, but I'm assuming that's a big priority to them is they don't want their kids advertised to. They don't want the Budweiser Frogs. And they don't want the Joe Camels. And they don't want advertising that's trying to direct these kids into thinking marijuana is cool. So thank you. Thank you for the response, Mickey, and look forward to responses from Betty and Sarah and anybody else who wants to chime in on this issue of edible packaging. This is the kind of stuff we have to work out as marijuana is becoming legal. It's great to have problems like this, isn't it? Hey, that's all the time we got for hour one, but stay tuned for hour two. We're going to give you an update on the Colorado DEA raids. We'll talk about that cocaine congressman and more on Utah and Alepsia. For Brian the Red, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you